My name's Taylor Horst. I live in the South Valley of Albuquerque.
My name is Jessie Brown. I'm the co-chair of the Albuquerque Beaks and the secretary of the New Mexico Beekeepers Association.
It is spring 2013 right now, and I only had 2 Langstroth hives over the winter.
I had 17 beehives going into winter last winter, and I only had 1 that survived, which is a real bummer.
We've seen a significantly smaller number of swarms this spring, which to me means that even feral bees had the same experience. So I don't think you can point the finger at a particular beekeeper or even a particular beekeeping practice. I think it's just the general environmental issues that we had in the middle Rio Grande Valley. So talking about losses of the bees over the winter of 2012-2013, what the beekeepers that I have talked to have come to sort of an agreement that we think it was caused by the drought conditions, because the symptoms that we see when we get into hives after that winter are plenty of stores, plenty of honey, and pollen in most of them too, and a very small clump of dead bees in the hive someplace. And that clump isn't big enough to have been a sustainable winter cluster of bees. So if it was so dry in the fall that the queen really shut down her laying and she didn't lay enough eggs to keep a big enough winter cluster going, then by the time we got to the end of winter, there were virtually no bees being born, and very few of them still left. And probably the situation was exacerbated by the fact that it got hot, and then it got cold, and then it got hot, and then it got cold in January and February. And the bees broke their cluster, but they just didn't have enough brood to make it.
So going in winter of 2012, I knew there would be some big issues over the winter. There's always hope, I guess you can't be a human without hope. So I was hoping, it was going to be okay, but it ended up, I lost a lot of hives. The things I was worried about last winter is across the board, I have 17 beehives in 5 different bee yards, and all of them just looked very dry. They didn't have a ton of honey stores, and the honey stores that they had weren't very heavy, they're just very light stores. So I didn't pull that much honey last year. I let them keep whatever they had. I combined my weak hives with strong hives. I don't like to combine weak hives together because 2 weak hives does not equal a strong hive. It equals 1 weak hive. So I combined my weak hives with my strong hives, hoping the strong hives had enough resources to share with these weaker hives. And I just crossed my fingers. And there was one day where it was sunny this spring. I think it was early February. I was out of town, and that could have been a day I could have gone in and assessed the situation. I think that day might have been the day where the bees had broken their colony and moved to the front of the brood chamber. I'm guessing this is all sort of theory because I don't know for sure. I was not in the hive every day. But at some point they broke their colony in the back of the hive, moved to the brood nest area, started to build up for the year again, and then I think some more cold snaps came in, and they were stuck in that brood area without reserves, because in all of my hives they all had the exact same situation go on, where back in the honey stores they still had plenty of stores, they still had honey back there, and then the bees were dead in a different area of the beehive. It was a little sad dead brood area. Not brood. It was a little dead little small dead kind of ball of bees in the front, and they didn't have any honey near them. So at some point they came to the brood nest and couldn't get back to the reserves. Kind of sad.
My concern is that the bees are telling us that they can't survive here right now.
It's always been tough. I mean, there's a reason you don't see these beekeepers that have 10,000 hives come through New Mexico. We just don't have the forage to afford that many bees, the resources to
we may not be in the third year of a 3-year drought, the second year of a 3-year drought. We might be in the second or third year of a 7-year drought or a 10-year drought. And the bees, as an organism in response to the environment, are saying, we can't survive here right now. So what does this mean for beekeeping in the Middle Rio Grande Valley? Well, it means we're going to probably continue to import hundreds of packages every year from California, which is not sustainable in the long run. But if we want bees in the area, it's about all we can do. And what I try to do to get out of that cycle of having to import bees is support anybody that is trying to create a sustainable bee population here. So if somebody, for example, could produce 100 local packages, that would be 100 less we'd have to bring in from California, and those bees would be acclimated to this area. So Megan is working on that a little bit. She's going to try and raise queens, but there's problems with that, because the reason we bring them in from California is because of the temperate climate, and they can start increasing the number of bees in January so that they're ready to go when we need them in the spring. And it's too cold here to do that. So that whole process is going to have to be figured out by local beekeepers that have the interest and the time and the resources to increase the number of bees.
Beekeeping in New Mexico has had a really good history because we don't have really large agriculture here, which means we don't have the huge pesticide loads that other states are encountering. We don't really have the GMOs that a lot of other states are encountering, so we're kind of like a little island here in the state. So surprisingly, we're a great place for beekeeping, but we have some natural hurdles that are very tough for our bees.
We're not the same, dear, and it seems to me there's nowhere we can go with nothing underneath. And it saddens me to say what we both knew was true, that the ice was getting thinner under me and you. The ice was getting